Okay, there's a lot of reading here, so let's be clinical. Water is being poured into this tank that's in the shape of a cone. The water is h inches high and has a radius of r inches. So we want to write an equation for the volume of the water in the tank as a function of its height. Okay, so to do this, we first start with the volume formula for a cone. Volume is 1/3 of pi times the radius squared times the height. So that's the general form for any cone. Now, we don't want to have two variables, r and h. We only want to have h, okay, as a function of its height only. Right now, it's a function of radius and height. So we need to find a way to replace r. So the question is, how does the radius and the height relate? And because this is a right triangle, there is a proportional relationship between the radius and the height. So we compare the radius and the height. Okay, this radius and this height make a right triangle, just like any radius and any height make a right triangle. Okay, which is why these things are proportional, because they all have the angle at the bottom and the 90-degree angle on top in common. So the proportion is the maximum radius, which is 5, compared to the maximum height, which is 6. Okay, we know that if the height is 6, then the corresponding radius is 5. So they will always be in that proportion. Now, because I want to replace r, I need to solve for r over here. So we solve for r in the proportion so we can replace it in your formula. So you solve by multiplying by the denominator, and the radius is always 5 heights divided by 6. Okay? And the maximum, of course, would be with a radius of 5 and a height of 6. So we're going to replace r with 5 h's over 6. Okay, with a little bit of simplifying, we can make this equation quite nice and able to be used to do other things with. So we have to square each part of this parenthesis. Squaring 5 is 25. Squaring h is h squared. Squaring 6 is 36. And all these things are being multiplied together. So now I have fractions times non-fractions. So I do all of my numerator stuff. I multiply all this stuff together. And that gives me 25 pi times h to the 3rd power. And then I multiply all of my denominator stuff together, 3 and 36. And I get 108. So this is the formula to find the volume if I just knew the height. So that's the equation that I would write to express the volume as a function of its height. Now the question says, what is the height of the water when the volume is 12 pi? Okay, so now I know volume is 12 pi, so I set the equation over here equal to 12 pi, and I solve. So we multiply both sides by 108. 108 times 12 is 1296. Pi, don't forget about the pi, 25 pi h cubed. We will divide both sides by 25 pi. Okay, so the pi's cancel out, so you don't have to do that in your calculator. 1296 divided by 25 is 51.84 equals h cubed. So then our last step is to cube root both sides, giving me a height of 3.73, whatever the units were. In this case, the units are inches. Thank you. So 3.73 inches is the corresponding height of that water if there were 12 pi cubic inches of water in there. And we're done.